It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
We're the Insiders. So, Scott, we've got redistricting in place now, and the seats are changed dramatically. What is this going to mean for Republicans, for Democrats, for the partisan makeup of the legislature? What's your take on the whole thing?
Well, we're now running on maps that are essentially 50-50, right? There's a toss-up in both houses when you look just at the maps. But there's an incumbent advantage that Republicans possess. And I think they've done an extraordinarily good job in both the Senate and in the Assembly in sort of nudging people over into open seats that were, near their old district when they got redistricted into a district that with another Republican. So there was an awful lot of pairings in this fair map that were almost all Republicans that were paired together in seats. But the Republicans have done, I think, a very good job in sort of having the incumbents take advantage of their incumbency and run in the open seat that's next door rather than against their colleague. And so you see it all over the state. Pat Snyder, for example, in Wausau, he's going to keep his number but move his house. He's going to stick with 65% of his constituents and follow the constituency rather than maintain his old residence. So we're seeing that all over the state by Republicans. That's going to be crucial because there is an advantage, particularly in this sort of presidential year. There's a lot of people who will say, I can't stomach Trump, but I like my local state legislator. And many of these state legislators run 3-4 points ahead of the Republican presidential candidate. So what the Republicans need is to have as many incumbents running as possible so they can leverage that incumbency advantage, because over the course of the next decade, some of those incumbents will retire, some will get beat, and we will slowly work our way towards the 50-50 map that the Democrats have drawn here for Wisconsin. But Republicans need to maximize the number of seats they come out of in both houses in this fall's elections if they have any hope of hanging on to both houses all the way until the next redistricting.
Well, I think Scott's analysis is sound. It is inevitable that incumbents will have an advantage when they go into seats. And the Republicans had almost twice as many as Dems. So even with some pairings, the Republicans will have more incumbents, obviously, in these seats, and certainly in the marginal seats that Dems need to take in order to win the majority in the Assembly, for example. So I think there inevitably is some of that, and the Republicans have certainly worked to get the person they wanted into the seat. But I think Greta Neubauer's done a good job of recruiting. But let me challenge Scott when you talk about the Senate. You notice that Scott was talking about the Assembly. Let's talk about the Senate for a minute. First of all, the redistricting created an absolute Democratic slam dunk with no incumbent in the Appleton-Oshkosh area with a Democrat who already ran. That thing is going to be a Democratic seat. There are 3 other seats that are coming down the line. One is in Green Bay. Guess what? The Republicans have managed to take 2 of the 3 incumbents who were in that one seat, and they are gone. And what's happened is that Wimberger has decided to take out Coles, and Coles has decided not to run. I feel that's a bit of a loss for the state. Rob Coles is one of the few, at least willing to talk moderates that were left. He's gone because the Republicans don't want him. So they are using this as their opportunity to purge even more of the moderates from their party. But the bottom line is there is no incumbent running against Jamie Wall, who will be the Democratic nominee, who's run for Congress up there before, and who I think will win that seat. The fact that Wimberger would not stay in that seat where he lived to move to run against or in the Rob Cole seat tells you that even Wimberger doesn't think he can win. So there's 2 for the Dems. Then down in the Milwaukee suburbs, it did not work the way it should have or the way Scott described. What happened is they took out Knodel and put in, oh God, I'm forgetting his name, the other guy who's only running 10% of the district and who's a right winger. And he's going to be running against Jody Havish, who was just on the ballot for a special election. And she was there for over 60% of the district. Again, on that one, the numbers don't look quite as good, but that is trending Democratic. And she's a very strong candidate. I think, again, game for Democrats. By the way, the only place where this happened in the Senate, and Scott is correct about this, is in the Baldwin seat, where she is actually willing to take on a seat where she's probably only been on the ballot in 50%, but at least it's 50% of the district. The problem for Republicans in that seat, which is the 14th Senate district, is that that seat now comes into Dane County somewhat. And also, the top of the ticket numbers for that seat are around 54 or 55%. So of the 4 new seats that Democrats could take in the Senate, I think all of them actually lean toward the Democratic side. And there's only one Republican incumbent who's been in 50% of the district, and that's the one in the Dane County area. So I think some of his analysis may work with incumbents in the Assembly, but not in the Senate.
So I'm going to disagree with you, obviously. There is no way the Democrats win all 4 of those seats, not even close. And in fact, I think the Republicans stand a really good chance in the Wimberger seat that he is running in, and as well in the Baldwin seat. You referred to the Dewey Strobel versus Habish race, which will be a dynamo race. So if you don't think we have enough big races in Wisconsin, that state Senate race will probably cost as much as a congressional race in other parts of the state. So that's a race for people to watch around Wisconsin. But I think that's like a 50-50 race there. So we're going to see how close that's going to be. I think there is an advantage to the incumbent. And of course, Habish has run before. She got bruised during that last race. And so it's not like she's a brand new fresh face. She's already got a couple scars from having run before. On the state assembly side, here's the question I asked once before in this program, which is, if things are so rosy with this new map, why is 1/3 of the Democratic caucus in the assembly not running for re-election? Why are they running for other things, or just retiring? It's sort of odd in the assembly that they're having to go out and recruit people to run in these new seats that they created that are 50-50 seats. That actually helps Republicans quite a bit.
It's an unusual situation, but for example, very close to where I live, in fact, in the Senate district that I live in, there are actually 3 new people, 3 open seats. Why? Well, they're all running for the open Senate seat because the senator there is running for county exec, Melissa Agard, who will be the next Dane County executive. She's running for that. But I think there are unusual circumstances like that. Evan Goyke becoming the city attorney in Milwaukee, of course, successful on that. So I think there are some dynamics here. It is a little bit surprising, but there are some unusual dynamics that have created the situation where that many people are leaving. But I think, it's possible that I think the assembly could go Democratic this time. It's not possible in the Senate. That will take 2 cycles. It's possible that it takes 2 cycles for this to be done. Scott is right. Incumbency does have an advantage, but a lot of it, as Scott has mentioned, and I agree, will depend upon how the presidential race goes. I would say this: if either Trump or Biden were to win Wisconsin by 2%, which again is getting close to a landslide the way it is, I think that could make a difference in how the legislature comes back very dramatically, because
I think the one thing we can agree upon is there's going to be an extraordinary number of races to watch in both houses. I mean, normally in the state Senate, you're talking about 1 or 2 races that are really kind of a toss-up, and maybe there's 8 or 9 in the state assembly. There could be 15 to 20 races that you have to watch in the state assembly, and as you say, 4 races in the state Senate. So about double the number of races you'd normally have to watch, plus all the hot congressional races, a U.S. Senate race, and a presidential race. I think we have enough content for the rest of the year here on our show.
And it's bowl of popcorn time. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.